I was about to go to bed when my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Hey, can you come over?" I frowned. Olivia was out of town. I knew that for a fact because I had dropped her off at the airport 2 days ago. We even joked about how her flight would probably be delayed, but she texted me when she landed. She was with her parents, 3 states away. I typed back, "Aren't you in Chicago?" 3 dots appeared. Then they vanished. A few seconds later, another message came through. "I'm waiting for you inside." I felt my body go cold. I stared at the screen, my fingers tightening around my phone. Maybe she left the key with someone. Maybe she came home early and forgot to tell me. But then why did that message feel wrong? I hesitated before replying. "Who is this?" No answer. The room around me suddenly felt too quiet, like the air itself was listening. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and left. The drive to Olivia's apartment was a blur. The streets were nearly empty, just the occasional car passing by, headlights flashing like warnings. My mind raced through possibilities. A prank? A break-in? Or something worse? When I pulled up to her building, everything looked normal. Too normal. Her window was dark. The parking lot empty. I climbed the stairs, every step echoing in the silence. When I reached her door, I hesitated. Then, I knocked. The sound barely carried down the hallway. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. "Olivia?" Nothing. I tried the handle, expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. The door swung open with a slow, aching creak. The apartment was dark. Stale. Like no one had been inside for days. I stepped in, my pulse hammering against my ribs. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a soft creak from the bedroom. I froze. Something shifted in the darkness beyond the hallway. A floorboard settling. A breath. I reached for the light switch and flicked it on. The living room looked exactly as Olivia had left it. A blanket draped over the couch. A half-full glass of water on the coffee table. A pile of unopened mail near the door. But the air felt wrong. Thick. Heavy. Like I wasn't alone. Another creak. The bedroom door was cracked open just an inch, a sliver of darkness pressing against the dim hallway light. My feet moved before I could think. I reached for the doorknob. Then, my phone buzzed. The sound made me jump. I fumbled to pull it out of my pocket, my fingers numb. A new message. From Olivia. "Don't go inside." My stomach dropped. My mouth went dry. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't moving. But I felt it. A presence. Right behind me. And then, the bedroom door creaked open wider. I nearly dropped my phone. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The bedroom door creaked open wider, the darkness inside shifting. I braced myself, body locked in place, every instinct screaming at me to run. Then, a familiar shape stepped out. A dog. Olivia's golden retriever, Milo. Relief hit me so fast I almost laughed. My legs went weak, and I leaned against the wall, exhaling sharply. Jesus, Milo. You scared the hell out of me. Milo blinked up at me, tail wagging slightly, but something about him seemed off. His fur was matted in places, like he hadn't been brushed in days. His paws left faint smudges on the hardwood, tracks of something I couldn't quite make out. His eyes, usually warm and full of life, seemed darker, duller. How'd you get out? I muttered, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. He felt cold. Too cold. I glanced around the apartment again. Everything looked the same, but that feeling, like something was watching me, hadn't faded. If anything, it had settled deeper, like it had wrapped itself around the walls. Milo whined softly, pressing his nose against my leg. I looked down at him. Where's your leash? He just stared at me. The air in the apartment was too still, like the whole place was holding its breath. I swallowed, shaking off the lingering unease. Maybe Olivia's text was just a bad joke. Maybe she had asked someone to check on Milo, and they forgot to lock up. Still, something gnawed at me. I pulled out my phone, rereading the message, "Don't go inside." I hesitated, then typed back, "Very funny. Milo just scared me half to death." 3 dots appeared. Then they vanished. I frowned. Olivia always texted fast. Milo let out a soft whimper. His ears flattened, eyes flicking toward the bedroom. I followed his gaze. The door was still open, revealing nothing but thick, suffocating darkness inside. I hadn't turned the bedroom light off. Had I? Milo took a step back, pressing against my leg. The air suddenly felt colder. I swallowed hard and forced out a laugh. All right, bud. Let's get you outside. I grabbed his leash from the hook by the door, clipping it onto his collar with shaking hands. The second I opened the front door, Milo bolted, nearly yanking me off my feet. I barely managed to keep hold of the leash as he dragged me down the hallway, his nails clicking frantically against the tile. His whole body trembled like he couldn't get away fast enough. I didn't look back. I locked the apartment behind me and followed Milo down the stairs, that last message from Olivia burning in my mind. If Milo was inside, who opened the bedroom door? Milo didn't stop pulling until we were outside, paws scuffing against the pavement as he dragged me toward the nearest patch of grass. He was shaking, ears flattened, tail tucked so tightly between his legs that it barely moved. I knelt beside him, running my hands over his fur. His breathing was fast, his chest rising and falling in sharp, panicked bursts. "It's okay, buddy," I murmured, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. "You're all right." He didn't look up. He just stared at the apartment building, eyes locked on my window. I followed his gaze. The bedroom light was back on. I sucked in a breath, pulse hammering in my throat. I hadn't touched the switch before leaving. Hadn't even stepped inside the room. Slowly, I reached for my phone. "Olivia. This isn't funny. Is someone in your apartment?" The message delivered instantly. No typing bubble appeared. Milo let out a low whimper, pressing against my leg. I felt his whole body tense as if he was waiting for something. I swallowed hard and looked back up at the window. The light flickered. Once. Then, again. Like someone was standing inside. Moving. My stomach twisted. "Olivia, answer me." 3 dots appeared. My fingers clenched around the phone. Then the reply came. "Who's with you?" The words sent a sharp chill through me. I looked around, my breath fogging in the night air. I was alone. I stared at the message, confusion twisting into something colder. "What are you talking about?" Nothing. No response. The window light flickered once more. Then it went out. The apartment was dark again. Milo let out a low growl. Something about the night felt heavier, like the air had thickened, pressing in around me. I gripped his leash tighter, my free hand curling into a fist to stop the tremor in my fingers. I needed to leave. I needed to turn around and walk away, call Olivia, and tell her to get her locks changed the second she got home. But I couldn't stop staring at that window. Because the longer I looked, the more I was sure someone was still standing there. Watching. Waiting. Milo's growl deepened, a low, rumbling warning that sent another chill up my spine. I wanted to look away from the window, to convince myself I was imagining things, but I couldn't. There was a shape in the darkness. Not a reflection, not a shadow, something was standing inside Olivia's apartment. It wasn't moving, but I could feel it watching me. I took a step back. Milo let out a sharp bark, yanking against the leash. The noise echoed down the quiet street, but nothing inside the apartment changed. The figure didn't shift. Didn't flinch. It just stood there. My phone buzzed in my hand. "Get out of there." I barely had time to process the message before the light in her apartment flickered back on. And the figure was gone. My breath caught in my throat. My legs felt locked in place, every muscle screaming at me to move. I forced myself to look around, at the street, at the other buildings, at the empty parking lot. Everything else was completely normal. Then my phone buzzed again. "I'm serious. Don't go back inside." I swallowed hard and typed with shaky fingers. "Who is in your apartment?" The reply came instantly. "It's not my apartment." The cold inside my chest spread like ice water through my veins. "Not hers?" I stared at the screen, rereading the words over and over. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out everything else. I turned to Milo, who was still tense, ears pinned back. His body trembled under my hand. He was scared. More scared than I'd ever seen him. That should have been enough. That should have sent me running. But instead, I found myself stepping forward, gripping my keys so tightly they bit into my palm. I needed to know. I needed to see. Because if that wasn't Olivia's apartment, then whose was it? And why did it know my name? My feet felt heavy as I stepped toward the apartment door. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to listen to Olivia, to listen to Milo, who was now whining, pulling at his leash in the opposite direction. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I reached out, my fingers grazing the doorknob. Cold. Too cold. Like it had been sitting in ice. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to turn it. The door swung open with a slow creak. The apartment was exactly as I had left it. Lights on. Couch slightly askew. The kitchen counter still had my half-drunk coffee from earlier. Nothing out of place. But it felt wrong. The air was thick, heavy, pressing down on me like a weight. And it smelled different, stale, like the air hadn't moved in years. My own apartment had never smelled like this. Milo refused to come inside. He planted his paws firmly at the threshold, leash stretched tight, eyes locked on something I couldn't see. I swallowed. "Milo, come on." He whined again, taking a step back. I sighed, unhooking his leash. "Fine. Stay out here." He didn't hesitate. He bolted down the hallway, tail tucked. I stared after him, unease curling in my chest. Milo had never run from anything before. The door shut behind me with a soft click. The sound made my breath catch. I hadn't touched it. I turned slowly, heart hammering. The living room was empty. I forced myself to breathe, to move. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it. Instead, I walked toward the hallway leading to my bedroom, step by step, my legs stiff, my body resisting. I reached my door. It was slightly open. Had it been like that before? I pushed it fully open. My bed was made. My dresser untouched. The only thing out of place was my closet door. It was open. Just a crack. And something was breathing inside. Shallow, raspy, like the air was being pulled through teeth. I froze. The sound didn't stop. Didn't move. Didn't acknowledge me. I reached for my phone, hands trembling, finally looking at the message Olivia had sent. "Don't go near the closet." I didn't have time to react before the closet door creaked open another inch. And something inside whispered asterisk, "I told you not to come back." Asterisk, the whisper curled through the air like smoke, seeping into my skin. My breath hitched, and I stepped back, my body screaming at me to run. Then the closet door slammed open. An icy gust shot through the room, knocking over a lamp and rattling the pictures on the wall. My phone slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. I tried to move, but something wrapped around my wrist, invisible, cold, crushing. I choked on a scream. The pressure tightened, yanking me forward with a force that sent me stumbling toward the closet. My knees hit the ground hard. The room blurred around me as the grip spread, clawing up my arm, pressing into my skin like fingers of ice. I struggled, kicking, twisting, but there was nothing there. No hands. No body. Just a crushing, suffocating force that refused to let go. Then, a voice, low, guttural, right against my ear. "You let me in." Pain lanced through my chest, cold and sharp, like something had reached inside me and gripped my ribs. My vision wavered. The walls around me flickered, my bedroom, then darkness, then something else. A rotting hallway. A place that wasn't here. "No, no, no," I thrashed, but the force only pulled harder. My body inched closer to the gaping darkness of the closet. The air inside it wasn't just dark, it was wrong. It had depth, like an open mouth waiting to swallow me whole. I was being dragged in. A guttural snarl ripped through the air. Milo. He shot into the room, teeth bared, his growl deep and primal. He lunged, snapping at whatever had me. The force let go. I gasped as I collapsed backward, my body trembling. The air shifted, the presence recoiling. Milo barked, snapping at the darkness inside the closet. The second his teeth clicked shut, the closet door slammed shut on its own. The room fell silent. My hands were shaking as I crawled backward, gasping for breath. My wrist throbbed. When I looked down, dark bruises were already blooming, shaped like fingerprints. Milo stood between me and the closet, still growling, his fur bristling. I forced myself up, grabbed my phone, and ran. I didn't stop. Not when the lights flickered as I passed. Not when I heard something scraping against the walls. Not even when I felt the icy breath on the back of my neck as I reached the door. I threw it open, nearly tripping over myself as I stumbled into the hallway. Milo followed, and the door slammed shut behind us. I stood there, panting, staring at the door. My apartment. My home. And from inside, muffled but clear, the whisper. This isn't over. My hands were still shaking when I unlocked my phone. I barely registered the sweat slicking my fingers or the way my breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. All I knew was that I had to call for help. I tapped 911. The ringing felt like it stretched for hours before a voice finally clicked in. 911, what's your emergency? I swallowed hard. Please, you have to send someone. There's something in my apartment. It attacked me. It's not human. A pause. Then, in the most patronizing voice I'd ever heard, Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? I looked at my wrist. The bruises were deepening, spreading up my forearm like ink soaking into paper. I licked my lips. Yes. I don't know what it is, but it's real. Please, just send someone. Another pause. Are you alone? I glanced down at Milo. His ears were still pinned back, his tail stiff. He hadn't taken his eyes off the door. No, I said. My dog is with me. Another beat of silence. Then, with the kind of detached boredom that made my stomach drop, the dispatcher said, Ma'am, have you been drinking or taking any substances tonight? My stomach twisted. No. I told you, something attacked me. I have bruises. Have you been experiencing any stress recently? Lack of sleep? Have you had any prior? I hung up. I knew that tone. The same one people use when they think you're crazy. Milo whined, pressing his head into my leg. My breath hitched, and I ran a hand through my hair, trying to keep from shaking apart. They didn't believe me. No one would believe me. Then the pounding on my door sent Milo into a frenzy. His barking was sharp, frantic, but I barely heard it over the ringing in my ears. The laughter from my phone had stopped the moment the first knock hit. Police, a voice called. Open up. I hesitated. For days, I had begged for someone to believe me. But now that they were here, Dread coiled in my stomach. I forced myself to my feet and opened the door. Two officers stood there, a man and a woman, both watching me with careful, unreadable expressions. Behind them, my neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, peered out from her doorway, clutching her robe closed. "Ma'am, we received multiple calls about screaming from this unit," the male officer said. His name tag read Officer Reynolds. His partner, Officer Vega, stood with her arms crossed, scanning the apartment. I swallowed. It wasn't me," I said, but my voice cracked. Vega's gaze landed on my bruised arms. "Are you hurt?" she asked. I shook my head. It's not what you think." Reynolds sighed. "Ma'am, can we step inside?" I hesitated. If they came in, they'd feel it. The way the air in my apartment was wrong. The way the shadows clung to the corners like they were waiting. But I stepped aside. Vega's eyes flickered to my living room. The mess of papers, the empty coffee cups, the scattered printouts on hauntings, possessions, proof that I was deep in something I couldn't escape. "You been sleeping much?" Reynolds asked. I clenched my jaw. Vega's radio crackled. 10 to 96, the dispatcher's voice said. My stomach dropped. 10 to 96, they weren't here to help me. They were here to take me in. I took a step back, but Vega caught my arm. "Ma'am, we're going to have you come with us for a quick evaluation, okay?" "No." I pulled away. "You don't understand. There's something here. It's real." Reynolds pulled out handcuffs. "Let's not make this difficult." Milo growled. The room tilted. Something shifted behind me. I felt the air grow heavy, the unseen presence curling around my neck like fingers ready to squeeze. I tried one last time. "Please. You have to listen to me." Reynolds just sighed. "Yeah. I've heard that one before." The psych ward smelled like antiseptic and old air conditioning. The walls were white. Too white. Like a place built to scrub the mind clean. They took my phone. My camera. My notes. They gave me a gray jumpsuit and a stiff bed in a room with no sharp edges. The window didn't open. The door had a small slot for food trays. I sat on the bed, staring at my bruised arms, at the way the darkness still lingered under my skin like fingerprints. Maybe they were right. Maybe I had lost it. But then, a creak. The air shifted. I turned slowly. The chair in the corner moved an inch. A whisper slid along the walls, curling into my ear. "I told you. I see you."